restlessness. Oh God, how I need you.
Hey Restore, Pastor Dave. Thank you for tuning in. Just a reminder, we are doing in-person services, so 9:15, 10:45 if you prefer to join us in person. Really encourage you to come out. Also, you can find us on YouTube. A lot of you I know find us on Facebook, but we are also on YouTube. It's Restore Church Marshalltown on YouTube. And we are also doing little things to try to improve the online viewing experience for you. And one of those things is, you'll notice towards the end of this video, there's going to be some kind of discussion questions. And hoping that you take some time and really think through and discuss those. We're wanting you to make a little bit of a shift in your thinking. Some of you maybe already have, but you are not just watching church at home. During this time of COVID, you are the church at home. And so gather your family around and take some time to think about and discuss the questions. If you need to pause the video, but it really wants you to participate in those things and just make the whole online church service a little more experiential, right? Church is not just something we watch, it is something that we participate in. And so take some time and participate with those questions. Giving. We are so thankful for your generosity as a church. We rely on your generosity and your giving to keep us going. And so thank you for how you've given. And I just encourage you, keep being generous. So there are 3 ways you can give. You can give online, you can give via text, or you can give through the snail mail. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lavon.
And I'm Pastor Sarah.
And we're here to tell you about the women's event that's coming up pretty soon that Restore is hosting. And it's called the If Gathering. And we're actually going to be joining with women all over the country, even the world, who are going to be gathering together in their churches or their homes to watch this conference called the If Gathering. And this year is the theme of it I really liked. It's called Even If the Worst Happens, We Still Have Hope. And none of us likes to think about the worst happening, but we definitely want hope. And especially this year, I think. So I really thought that was a great theme to have this year.
You can kind of think of it as like TED Talks. So there's a whole bunch of different speakers who give just short 10, 15 minutes. So even if there's someone that you're like, the next person's probably going to be fantastic. It's at the Tall Corn in our ballroom. We're going to have a big screen up. We're going to move the couches in there. You're able to bring what you need to bring to be comfortable, a pillow, your slippers, your own personal snacks, whatever you need for ultimate comfort in that space.
Yes. And we will have meals provided because it's a Friday evening, so there'll be some supper there, and a Saturday morning into the lunchtime. And if you can't come to all of it, that's okay too. Just come for as much as you can.
And you can also just plan on coming and enjoying it with the Restore women. You're able to invite a friend if you wanted to. On our Facebook page, on this Restore Women's Facebook page, comment RSVP. There's an event on there so that we kind of plan on who's coming. And we'll also have information on the cost on there if you're able to help contribute to that.
Right, yep. So yeah, check it out on our Facebook page, Restore's Facebook page. Look for the event If Gathering. Let us know if you have questions. We really hope to see you.
Thank you.
Welcome, my name is Pastor Dave. Thank you for joining me. And we are talking about more Jesus and his miracles of increase. This is the series we have been in over the last several weeks. This is our final week. Each week we've looked at a different miracle of Jesus and talked about how that miracle was a miracle of increase, how Jesus multiplies, how he creates something out of nothing, right? And so this is our final week, and we have a story about taxes. Yes, a sermon about taxes. Now, it's not really about taxes. The taxes are certainly part of the story, but we're not going to really talk about taxes, although it is tax season, isn't it? So maybe this is a not so subtle reminder to file your taxes. But this is a story about taxes. This is a story found in Matthew chapter 17. It is a short story. It's a little exchange between Jesus and Peter and the tax collectors. So let's read the story, Matthew 17, starting at verse 24. On their arrival in Capernaum, the collectors of the temple tax came to Peter and asked him, "Doesn't your teacher pay the temple tax?" "Yes, he does," Peter replied. Then he went into the house, but before he had a chance to speak, Jesus asked him, "What do you think, Peter? Do kings tax their own people or the people they have conquered?" "They tax the people they have conquered," Peter replied. "Well then," Jesus said, "the citizens are free. However, we don't want to offend them, so go down to the lake and throw in a line. Open the mouth of the first fish you catch, and you will find a large silver coin. Take it and pay the tax for both of us." So this unique little exchange. Now, just to give you some context, in Jewish culture, every male over the age of 20 was expected to pay an annual temple tax. And this goes back to the book of Exodus, and it wasn't they didn't have an IRS that was going to hunt them down if they didn't. But it was an expected tax that all men would pay. And it was at this time they were under Roman rule, and so it was a 2 drachma tax. Now I don't have a drachma. I have a coin that I think looks maybe like it could be Roman. I don't know. It's not. It's actually, you got Queen Elizabeth II on it, so it's definitely not Roman. But all men were required to pay this tax, and this tax was used for the purpose of maintaining the temple. Now, obviously, a big important building, the temple. It had lots of usage. It had upkeep, maintenance, all that sort of stuff was necessary. So this is what this tax was used for. And it's not, this tax has some similarities to our modern tithing. Like as Christians, the Bible talks to us and tells us that we should be tithing 1/10 of our income. And this tax is not the same as tithing. For one, this was an annual thing that wasn't based on a person's income, but kind of like tithing, it was used for the upkeep of the temple, just like oftentimes when you tithe, that money goes towards maintaining a space for Christians to meet, often a church building. And so there are some similarities there, but this is not the same as tithing. And this is not a sermon about tithing. This is a sermon about taxes, because taxes are so much more fun to talk about. Actually, it is a sermon about Jesus performing the miraculous. That's what it is. And it's this little exchange. So Peter gets pulled aside by the tax collectors, and they don't really ask Peter if he's paying the tax. They say, "Hey, does Jesus pay the tax?" And Peter, he, as a person, he often speaks before thinking. Maybe you can relate, maybe you can't. And so Peter right away says, "Well, of course he does, sure." And then he goes into the house where they are at, and Jesus is in there, and presumably Peter's about to ask Jesus if he pays the tax, because he just had the conversation with the tax collector. But Jesus speaks before Peter gets an opportunity, and Jesus then gives him these questions about who's required to pay the tax. See, Jesus is not only the Messiah, he's also our high priest, and priests were exempt from the temple tax. So technically, Jesus was exempt from paying the temple tax. It could be argued it wasn't required of him. Now, but Jesus, he says not to offend anybody, let's just go ahead and pay it. And it's not that Jesus is opposed to offending people, because later on he will go to the temple and turn over the tables and offend a lot of people. But in this story here, he's not wanting to rock the boat, and he says, just let's pay the tax. Now, he doesn't do it the normal way. Like he could have said, hey, Peter, go fetch the money purse and take out enough drachmas for you and me and go pay the tax. Now, he doesn't do that. See, we find that Jesus oftentimes doesn't do things the way we would do things, right? Because logically, you would get the money purse or whatever man bag they carried then, wherever they were keeping whatever billfold, and Jesus would say, okay, go get out 4 drachmas and go pay. Jesus says, Peter, I'm not required to pay the tax, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to go throw a line in, go fishing. And so Peter goes and I've got a fishing lure here. I don't know what or how he preferred to fish. A lot of the other stories, they used nets. And so this is one of the few times where Peter goes and throws a line in. And Jesus says, the first fish you catch, and it's making a presumption that Peter's going to catch fish, because if you remember other times when Jesus encounters Peter fishing, he's not having great luck. But in this case, Jesus makes the assumption Peter's going to catch something. He said, the first fish you catch, pull it out and look in its mouth, and you will find a silver coin. Right? You'll find a coin, and take that coin and go pay the tax for both you and for me. And that's the story. He goes, he casts a line in, he catches a fish. It has a coin in its mouth. It's bizarre. Why Jesus does things like this, I don't know. It has the coin, he takes it and we presume pays the tax. And the story ends. It is a strange little exchange between Jesus, Peter, and a tax collector. So, why is it there? Why is this story here? What does this story have to say to us today other than pay your taxes? Right? What is it? Well, I think the story actually illustrates several things that are very key for our lives. The first thing is, in this story, we see that Jesus knows your needs. Right? Before Peter is even able to ask Jesus about the tax, Jesus starts the conversation. And we see this in this story. We see it other places as well. But there is this thing where Jesus knows what you need even before you ask. Right? Those circumstances don't surprise him. That bill you weren't expecting doesn't shock Jesus. Jesus knows your needs. Jesus knew the need. Jesus knew the thing Peter was about to ask him. Jesus knows. He is paying attention, and he knows your needs. And that is something that a lot of us, yes, we've been told that, we know that, we understand that, but it's good to be reminded of that. Jesus knows your needs. That speaks about his care, his concern, his provision for us. He knows your needs. He's paying attention to you. Even before you ask, he knows. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't ask. That's not what it says. But he knows. And so Peter and Jesus have this conversation, and Jesus sends them out to go fishing. And what we see is that Peter obeyed. Right? Jesus says, Peter, go cast a line in, and Peter does that. And we see that obedience preceded the miracle, right? Obedience preceded the miracle. And I think that there is something to that. I think that Jesus is desiring to take care of us, and he does take care of us. He does provide for us. But I think sometimes our disobedience takes us out of the pathway of a miracle. Sometimes our disobedience, it removes us just from what Jesus was wanting to do. Like Jesus is wanting to bless us. Jesus is wanting to provide and do these miracles. And so Jesus in this story tells Peter, go fish and you will catch a fish and it'll have the coin in it, right? What would have happened if Peter said, Jesus, that's crazy. Don't ask me to fish. I'm done with fishing, right? You called me away from that lifestyle, didn't you? What if Peter had said, Jesus, just go get the purse, just go get the money bag, and let's just do this, let's just pay it? What if Peter had listened to Jesus and went out and then decided, you know what, that's ridiculous, I'm not fishing, I'm just gonna... What happens when we don't obey? What happens when we hear Jesus speak to us and we think it's silly? We think it's a crazy idea. Peter could have said, Jesus, that is a ridiculous idea. I'm not going to... He may have said, Jesus, you know I'm not good at fishing, right? He may have said, Jesus, that's a ridiculous idea. Fish do not have coins in their mouth. I've been a fisherman my whole life. I have caught hundreds, possibly thousands of fish, and they don't have coins in their mouth. I'm not going to be able to pay a tax from a coin in a fish's mouth. That's a ridiculous idea, Jesus. Don't ask that. What if Peter's response had been that? How often in your life do you read something in Scripture and you get this moment where you feel like that is speaking directly to the circumstance you're in, and you know God is speaking to you through that, and then you think to yourself, that's ridiculous. Why would God really ask me to do that? Or you're in prayer and you just get the sense that whatever this opportunity is in front of you, you should do this. And then you talk yourself out of it because it sounds crazy. Or you have this encounter with somebody and it just seems like now is the time where this is leading to something, where I'm going to start a conversation, I'm going to share something with this person, I'm going to ask for something, and then you talk yourself out of it because it sounds ridiculous. What would have happened if Peter had walked away from Jesus and thought, it's not going to happen. There's not going to be a coin in a fish's mouth. Now, that's not the story we read. Peter was obedient. And Peter's obedience preceded the miracle. And I don't know if, in this story, that isn't the verse doesn't say, so you must always obey before Jesus will do a miracle in your life. It doesn't say that. It's just, as I read the story, I see this thing that kind of pops out to me, that Peter was obedient and the miracle followed his obedience. And I don't know if there have been times in your life where Jesus was about to do a miracle, but you didn't obey. I don't know that. What I do know is that in this story, obedience was followed with a miracle. And I think there is something there. I think that if we are wanting to see Jesus work the miraculous in our life, I think there's something to be said for us living obediently to him. And there are probably areas in our life where we know we have been slack. There are probably areas in our life where we know we have been putting off obedience because our way is easier. Our way is just easier. Obeying somebody else is difficult. Obeying God is difficult. But I do think that there is a point where if we are asking and expecting Jesus to work in our life, yet we're walking in disobedience, we may be fooling ourselves. Peter obeyed, and the miracle that Jesus told Peter was going to happen happened. That's the lesson. The next thing that I kind of see in this story is it's It's a story about taxes, but it's a story about just mundane things, right? Like paying taxes, there is nothing exciting about that. It's just mundane. And we see that Jesus transforms the mundane into the miraculous, right? Jesus takes this situation that really has no excitement to it. It's paying an annual tax. There's nothing there. It's just so normal. And Jesus uses that situation to show something to Peter, to build faith into Peter, to do this miracle in Peter's life. Jesus turns the mundane into the miraculous. And I think that there are times in our life where we are just wading through the mundane circumstances and we're not looking or thinking or expecting Jesus to show up because it's the mundane, it's the normal, it's the everyday. But in this story, it was the mundane, it was the normal. It was taxes. And Jesus showed up and did the miraculous. And I think that we need to start paying attention, even during the mundane times, to what Jesus may be up to. Because I think Jesus is up to more than we know, and that he is at work in places that we think are just normal. I think he's doing cool things, and sometimes we don't see past the normal. We don't see past the mundane, and we don't look deeper into the situation. This is a story of Jesus taking the most mundane, ordinary, normal thing and doing something miraculous. That's what Jesus does. So don't discount the normal days. Don't feel like the mundane times in life are just nothing happening sort of days. Stop thinking like that, because Jesus will show up in those circumstances, and he can do cool things. He can do the miraculous. He can change our thinking, right? See, Peter, he grew up as a fisherman, right? When Jesus first encounters Peter, Peter is a fisherman. That was his trade. That was his profession. He was a professional fisherman. That's what he did. And Jesus calls him out of that to follow Jesus and become one of his disciples, and he will become a preacher. He will become a leader in the church. Peter will become an author. He will accomplish some amazing things in his life, but he starts out as a fisherman, just a run-of-the-mill fisherman. We don't even know if he was good at it, right? We don't even know if I don't think he was some big special commercial fisherman with a whole fleet of boats. And no, he's just a normal guy who made his living as a fisherman. And Peter is called out of that by Jesus to be a follower of Jesus. Jesus saw something in Peter, and he said, "Peter, follow me." And then what happens is we see these different instances where Peter is fishing and just kind of doing his own thing, and Jesus invades that space. See, Jesus doesn't care about your space bubble. Jesus doesn't care about the places in your life where you just want to be you and be left alone. He doesn't care. He will step into those spaces because he wants to transform all of you. He wants to be a part of all of you, right? Often in relationships, and if you are married, or even if you're just you have siblings, we have these relationships. And how many of you guys in your relationship, there are times when you need a break, right? You just need some alone time. You need some me time. And so sometimes we take up hobbies just to escape relationships, don't we? Like we take up these hobbies or these different things because we're just trying to figure out some ways we can get away and get some alone time or get some me time, as we like to say. But at the root of that hobby or whatever it is, often it's just an escape, right? You need some time away from everything, away from the relationships. And I'm not saying that it's that it's wrong or bad to have some of that. But in that, recognize that Jesus doesn't respect your alone time. Jesus doesn't care about your me time. Jesus doesn't care about your space bubble, right? He will come and invade those spaces in your life. See, Peter, we see this a few different times in Scripture, when Peter is frustrated or he doesn't know what's happening, he doesn't know what's going on, his form of escape is to go back to fishing. It's what he knew. It's what he did. It's his escape. And Jesus keeps showing up in those times. And in this story here, Jesus actually sends Peter out to go fishing. And I think one of the things that Jesus was trying to communicate to Peter is, Peter, now that you're following me, everything about your life is going to be transformed. Everything. See, after this encounter, after Peter goes and he casts his line and he throws his lure in the water and he catches that fish and he pulls the fish out with the coin. After that happens, I guarantee Peter could never again look at fishing the same. Peter, every time he thought about fishing, every time he would go back to it, because this isn't the only time he'll go back to fishing, every time that happened, in his mind, he had to be remembering the fish with the coin and how Jesus stepped into Peter's life and he transformed even the normal mundane things, and he took this thing of fishing and turned it into something miraculous. There is no escape. Jesus will step into every closet of your house. Jesus wants to be in every corner of your life. He wants to be a part of everything, because his transformation process isn't just a 10%, right? We think of taxes, and we talked a little bit about tithing, and tithing is this 10% that we are recognizing that everything we have is given to us from God, and so we give back a tenth of that, and then but Jesus is communicating that, Peter, it's I don't just want a tenth, I want 100. Peter, I'm not interested in just transforming a little bit of you. I'm going to transform every place, every space. I want everything you do now to be a reminder of how I've transformed that spot in your life. Peter, there is going to be no escape from my grace in your life. There is no place you can run where I won't find you. And Peter has this experience, and from then on, I think he could never look at fishing the same. Jesus is interested in transforming all of you. And in other relationships, we can have these little escape routes. We can have these hobbies. We can carve out some me time. But when it comes to you and Jesus doesn't respect your space bubble, and he doesn't want you to have a spot where you can carve out time away from him. That's not part of the equation. Jesus is saying to us, I want all of you. Every closet. Every space. I want to be a part of all of it. Because his intention is to transform everything about you. Your heart, your thinking, your language, how you love others. Everything about you, he will change, he will transform. And that includes the mundane, the normal, the everyday stuff. And he does this with Peter. From here on out, every time Peter walks past the lake, he remembers that Jesus transformed even fishing. changed it, taught him things, invaded that space and did the miraculous. And so we really do have to start expecting the miraculous in the mundane. This is the story. It's a temple tax. It's an annual thing. It's the most mundane, basic thing. And Jesus turns it into a story of the miraculous. And I think that needs to be a part of our life, where no matter where we are at, or no matter what we are doing, or what our circumstances are, we need to be thinking about how Jesus is with us. And Jesus is able to transform this situation. Jesus is able to turn the mundane into the miraculous. And it's not just that he is able, he wants to. Right? Abundant life, the abundant life that Jesus gives, that Jesus promises, that abundance isn't just for Sunday morning. It isn't just for those special times here and there, or the holidays, or your birthday, Hey, it's your birthday. I'll give you an abundant life present. Enjoy it this week. No, that's not Jesus' intention. His intention is to transform every space of your life, to bring about his abundance in all of it. The mundane, the normal, the everyday. See, as we walk in this Christian faith, we are redefined by the quiet miracle of God's grace. This story of Jesus and Peter and fishing is kind of a quiet miracle, right? We talked about Jesus feeding the 10,000. That's a big, loud miracle. Lots of witnesses, right? Everybody heard about it. Everybody talked about it. It's recorded in all 4 Gospels. And it's a miracle that has a lot of fanfare. This miracle, the coin in the fish's mouth, is kind of a quiet miracle. Presumably, it's just Peter there casting a line in, maybe standing on the shore by himself. And he pulls the fish out, and there's the coin. Now, he obviously talked about the story because we have it recorded in Matthew, right? But it's a miracle that when he pulled that fish out of the water and opened its mouth, it was a miracle, really, that it was quiet. He was the only witness. And often in our life, some of the things that Jesus has done in our life are kind of quiet. His grace can show up in just quiet ways. Not a lot of fanfare. It's not making the headlines. But every day as we walk in faith, he is continually transforming our minds, transforming the way we think, transforming the way we see other people and love other people. And it's often not this big miracle with fanfare. It's this quiet revelation. It's this quiet grace constantly at work, every day transforming more and more of me. We are redefined by the quiet miracle of God's grace. And it's happening in your life every day. Sometimes you don't even recognize it, but it is happening. Jesus is at work. He is transforming you. He is changing the way you think. He is changing the way you see. He is changing the way you hear him. He is changing the way you look at him. He is changing the way you love others. And it may be in quiet, subtle ways, day by day by day, but he is doing it. Through his grace, he is doing it. See, with Jesus, everything is more. We've looked at 4 different miracles of increase. But with Jesus, we must understand that everything is more. That when we step into this relationship with Jesus, when we encounter him, when we invite him into our hearts, when we allow him to have access to us, when we let him forgive us, when we accept that gift of his grace, everything is more. He begins to work. He begins to transform. He begins to take the normal days and turn them into miracles. Yes, there will be times where it is big and it's exciting and there is headlines and fanfare and you remember the date, you remember the time and the place, but then there will also be days where it is mundane, where it's just so normal, where you could say it was just a quiet, boring day. But even in those days, Jesus is at work. Even in those days, he is quietly transforming. He is quietly bringing about his abundance. Jesus is more. And he is going to work miracles of increase in your life. Expect it. Do like Peter did and walk out in obedience when he asks you to do something. And expect him to show up and do what he's promised. Jesus says he's going to give us life more abundantly. That is the very definition of Jesus bringing more into our life. He is going to do that. Expect him to do that. Expect him to work. Expect him to bring increase.
You're the only answer to the darkness. You're the only right among the wrong. You're the only hope among the chaos. You are the voice that calls me on, louder than every lie, my sword in every fight. The truth will chase away the night. Your name is power over darkness, freedom for the captives, mercy for the broken and the hopeless. Your name is faithful in the battle, glory in the struggle, mighty won't let us down or fail us. Your name is power. Your name is power. I know that it's written, hope is certain. I know that the word will never fail. I know that in every situation you speak the power to prevail. Louder than every lie, my sword in every fight. The truth will chase away the night. Your name is power over darkness, freedom for the captives, mercy for the broken and the hopeless. Your name is faithful in the battle, glory in the struggle, mighty won't let us down or fail us. Your name is power. Your name is power. When you speak, you scatter darkness, light arrives and heaven opens. Holy Spirit, let us hear it. When you speak, your church awakens. We believe that change is coming. Holy Spirit, let us see it. 'Cause when you speak, you scatter darkness, light arise and heaven opens. Holy Spirit, let us hear it. 'Cause when you speak, speak, the church awakens. We believe that change is coming. Holy Spirit, let us see it. Your name is power over darkness, freedom for the captives, mercy for the broken